what's happening tonight, Alex? Why don't you tell us that to start off with?
I think it's great. The Hyde Park Book Club is a great magnet for people, particularly creative industries in Leeds, have put on this event because today's the last day that people can register to vote. They've got until 1 minute before midnight to register, and the book club want to increase voter registration, voter turnout. They've been offering people facilities to register to vote for about 2 weeks now, so they just invited me to come down to an event to encourage people to register tonight. There'll be some DJs, there'll be some people there'll be some creatives, some singers, so just there'll be a great atmosphere, people to be able to come down, go on a night out, but also encourage them to register to vote. So I'll be saying a few words as well as one of the Green candidates in the city from Leeds Central constituency. So it's a event organised by the book club, which the other political parties are engaging in, which I think is great. It's just about getting people to register to vote and be able to have their say.
We've seen quite a surge, particularly amongst young people. I was looking at a graph just before we came down here that actually the surge is really happening in the under 25. Yes. Do you think that's going to help your chances? And Labour's chances?
Well, if we look at the polls for 18 to 24 year olds, Labour is, I think, about 30% ahead of the next party, which are the Conservatives. Labour were ahead in 2015, but only by about 10 points. So we're seeing a huge increase in popularity for the Labour Party, and I think a lot of that's got to do with our set of policies, which are, these policies are the most youth-oriented policies we've seen in a generation. We're seeing about the abolition of tuition fees. We're seeing the end of unpaid internships, which lots of people actually have raised on the doorstep with me, saying that they can't afford to go and work for 6 months or a year without any pay. And I absolutely agree. They're working, they should get paid. Increasing the minimum wage to £10 an hour. A lot of people are working in low-paid jobs, minimum wage jobs. So increasing minimum wage, really important. Return of the education maintenance allowance. A lot, obviously, people who vote, very few of them that'll affect because it's 16 to 18 year olds. But the older ones, the ones a little bit older, 25, 26, 27, they were the last to get it. They remember what it was like. They remember when it was taken away from them. So those sort of policies are really popular.
There's a lot of discussion around the tuition fee scrapping. I'll just do that little intro into a question again, because that just didn't go well, did it? On the issue of tuition fees, Alex, Labour are coming under fire a bit in terms of what is the current system. If you end up earning a lot of money, you end up paying more of your loan back. So actually the wealthy are paying more for their tuition fees than those who end up being on lower incomes.
Yes.
That sounds to me like something that a Labour Party would support.
I think there's a few issues here. So first of all, there's perception for people going to university, and the perception is there's a lot of debt. People going from lower income households aren't going, oh yeah, if I don't earn a lot, I won't pay a lot. They just see a large level of debt. Yeah. Secondly, our tax system's less progressive than it was. We will reintroduce that progressive element. People earning over £80,000 a year pay much more income tax. So those successful people who go to university will be paying more back into the system. It's just not loaded onto their degree. So we'll be paying for tuition fees. The government will be paying for tuition fees. But high earners will still be paying for those tuition fees through their normal tax systems. And we believe that's better. That we do it through a progressive tax system, like Germany does it, like Sweden does it, because that's the best thing to do. The other thing I'd say is the system is really unfair. I got a free education. Everybody over the age of about 36 didn't pay fees, right? So why should those that got a free education dictate to those that are paying fees now?
So Labour have said today that anyone who starts a course in this September, if elected, will not pay fees.
Yes.
I'm sure many students who are in that position think that sounds like a good idea. But what about those of us, I'm being selfish here, what about me who's paid my fees and those of my generation? What are Labour's plans for those people?
I think you're absolutely right to be concerned about that, because you paid into the system, and I think the cost element is difficult. If we said we're going to scrap fees for everybody, including those ones gone, we'd have to. That's a massive upfront payment for incoming government. So I think personally, you know, somebody who's been to university in Leeds and who's been through, you know, and worked at the university in Leeds, I would be an advocate that we need to do something to help people who graduate. The first thing I think we need to do is that the student loan book has been privatised, it's gone out, and the interest rate on student loans is incredible. It's like it's over 4%, well above inflation, which obviously affects graduates hugely. So that student loan book needs to be brought back in-house, so we need to, so the student loans interest is back at that inflationary rate. That would immediately save, you know, hundreds of pounds a year for graduates. So I think that's the first thing we need to do, and then we need to look over time. But I think the cost of just scrapping everybody's fees right across the board immediately would be punitive. We have got time, because obviously people who've been paying fees are paying them over a period, you know, and saying we'll do something this year would be the ideal, but looking at it over long term will still save graduates money.
How do you think you would go about bringing the loan book that's been privatised back into public control?
Well, I mean, we could look at it.
Sounds like there'd be fairly challenging legal issues in terms of that.
Not really. These things are. If you look at, for instance, the mortgage book at Bradford and Bingley, that is now owned by the state. So all those people have got mortgages for houses, which is much less usual to be in the public sector than student loans, got brought back in, and that is. It's not. What I'm not saying is that you know, the Prime Minister will be like, yeah, I'm going to, you know, write out to the students. Obviously not. It would be just in public ownership. It doesn't mean run by the state directly, but the ownership of the loan book would be administered separately, but under public ownership and public control. So it would be a much fairer system. So it's just about taking that debt back in house. There's a whole recent history of us nationalising debt. Debt is the easiest thing to nationalise, let me tell you, because it's debt. You know, it's a bit harder to nationalise things which are running businesses. Yeah.
Okay, finally then, Alex, thank you for sharing a coffee with me and chatting to us outside the Hyde Park Book Club. What are your hopes for this evening?
I hope that lots of people come, and that people come who are maybe a little bit unsure, haven't registered yet, or maybe have registered but aren't sure whether they're going to vote, and hopefully they might get energised and understand that actually, if they're interested in these issues we've been talking about, and they're concerned about them, the only way to affect them is to vote. Not voting means not having a voice, means not utilising your power. And as we know, the group that votes in the largest proportion are the over 60s. So ceding your voice to them means that their issues will be addressed but not yours.
Labour victory?
Well, I mean, this manifesto is the strongest manifesto I'd say we've had in 20 years. If people look at the policies and they believe in the policies and look at the costings, the Conservative manifesto has not been costed. It's an uncosted manifesto. Ours is fully costed. You know, so who do you trust? You know, also I'd just say about debt. If you look at the debt in the last 7 years, coalition, Tory, Lib Dem, Tories on their own, more debt has been created, public debt, than all of the Labour governments ever in the history of this country. So we've got debt spiralling out of control under the Tories and an uncosted manifesto. If people look at our manifesto, look at our financial controls, then I think they'll vote Labour, and that's what we want. Look at the policies, look what affects you. Don't look at the mudslinging in the newspapers. They don't care about you, they're just trying to get a cheap headline.
Okay, thank you very much for speaking to us, Alex.
Okay.